Today, we're going to talk about more fake Lionel Messi autographs making their way into licensed product. Yes, you heard that right. This time it is within Topps Finest Soccer from 2022, and is a big bloody problem for two reasons in particular. Number one, this is not new for Lionel Messi. These same issues have come up in the past. I'm going to share some of that with you. And number two, there's not really all that much guarantee that Topps as a manufacturer give you when you're buying these products. So I want to keep this as a bit of a public service announcement that when you're going ahead and paying all this money for this product, you don't really have much to stand on in 12 months time, in 24 months time, if an issue does come up. And I'll share exactly what I mean by that a little bit later on. So obviously I want to talk about it for those two reasons, but then also highlight how this autograph process actually works for these manufacturers. And not many people know that they outsource the overseeing of these autographs going down. That I think is a huge can of worms and something that I've spoken about on this channel quite a lot in the past. People seem to have forgotten that. So I want to clarify some of the confusion that exists. So just bear with me and we'll go into the detail now. So it is this story here. This was shared on Reddit about 4 or 5 days ago. A number of people sent this to me. A few people have talked about it, but the people that have talked about it so far haven't really got the right information, haven't really got the information right. So the story basically goes is that a dad, I think they bought it for Christmas, bought a box of 2022 Topps Finest Flashback Soccer to open with his son. And his son actually opened the pack and hit an orange Messi auto out of 10. This one in particular over here. Now, obviously, there's a lot of text over here. It's a bit hard for you guys to follow, but the moderator for the subreddit made the following statement. And he goes on to say that this is a pretty big deal. So he summarized it and sticking it to the OP's post. Now, what he says is a summary of the situation. The original poster bought 2 boxes of this. The kid hit the Messi autograph. They then sent it to PSA, but it came back as authentic instead of a numerical grade. PSA said it was a mistake, and they asked the OP to send it back because they wanted to get DNA authentication done, getting the autograph graded and authenticated by PSA. Weeks later, PSA called and said the autograph was fake and it was possibly signed by Messi's brother. Now, this is key. I'll get to this in a second because this has in fact happened in the past with Lionel Messi. Now, the next point says that OP asked PSA for written confirmation, but their email softened the language, only saying they couldn't authenticate it. OP then contacted Topps, who asked him to send the card in, but refused to guarantee a resolution since it was over a year old. Now, what this essentially means is that Topps, if you guys didn't know, have a 12-month policy from the release of the product, if I remember correctly, where if there are issues with autographs or anything like that, they're not obliged to refund you with a like-for-like, or they're not obliged to stand by what they gave you. So that's a big problem, number one, that many people probably don't know about. And then the last post being PSA has 2 of these cards in its population. One is a red out of 5 graded gem mint, i.e. 10. The other is the same as what the OP hit. It was orange graded gem mint with PSA DNA authentication, meaning that, PSA are now going to change their stance because they're now saying, well, that shouldn't have passed authentication. We're going to go ahead and cancel it. Now, they're essentially decertifying every single card in their population. They're removing them, meaning that if you've owned one of these cards or you've hit one of these cards, you've got no chance of selling it now because PSA thinks the autographs are fake. And what has sort of transpired since then is that, a lot of people are sort of coming out and corroborating that these are in fact fake. I don't think we've had an official statement from Topps, but this mod has clarified why it's a big deal. I'm assuming you guys know, but just to be clear, Messi is the biggest name in the soccer brand. So if Topps have got that wrong and put that into a product, that's a huge issue. Autographs don't expire. Topps refusing to back their product over a year or after a year is ridiculous for the reasons I just mentioned. It's completely insane that you're going to go ahead and charge customers all this money, put this stuff into a product, and then not stand by it 12 months later because some imaginary time period has, passed. That doesn't fly. It doesn't make sense, especially when you're charging the amount of money you are. Now, what this person then goes on to say is that there are dozens of Messi autos from recent Topps and Panini products with nearly identical signatures. If Messi's team was involved in ghost signing, Topps and Panini need to take responsibility, not collectors and kids. I completely agree. Now, before I quickly jump to my next point, some of you guys might be sitting there saying, well, how does this mistake actually go down? How do they not, notice that somebody has signed this in place of the athlete? Like, surely they're sitting there watching this stuff happen for themselves. But as we've talked to many times in the past with all these videos over here where we found so many unsigned cards and all these other issues with Topps and Panini and all these things getting backdoored and then having fake autographs put on them, Topps and Panini and every other manufacturer for the longest time, for at least decades, don't send a representative themselves to oversight these signatures. They outsource it. And what often happens is they'll outsource it to the athlete's family member. They'll outsource it to the athlete's agent. They'll outsource it to some contract workers. And what they'll do in that particular instance, and what that means is they'll send a contract to them saying, hey, we're going to pay you. You're going to have to oversee that these signatures actually get signed by this person. we're having a legal agreement with you that you're signing off that that player, in fact, did sign these things. Well, as we've sort of seen time and time again, people in that situation either steal the cards, misplace them, or just don't watch the overseeing happen, or they just allow the athlete to do with it whatever the heck they want. It's a big problem, and it's something that we've talked about on this channel for 3 or 4 years now, about how these manufacturers can be doing better and how they should be doing better, especially like I said in that intro and like I've said in many videos in recent days. They're charging us all this money, but they're allowing this kind of shithousery to happen. One of the things I spoke about very quickly, I'm going to go on a tangent now. When these backdoored cards happen, we spoke about how, maybe in the past it was financially responsible to go ahead and do it that way, i.e. outsource it to, a contractor or whatever it is, right? Because the cards themselves weren't that expensive. But like we talked about over here with these Topps Chrome cards that went missing and then didn't make it into the actual product, is that these things are very expensive now. You're paying somebody $20 an hour, $40 an hour, $100 an hour, whatever it is, maybe more, to oversee this signature happen. And there's nothing stopping them from, stealing a card and then backdooring it, especially these messy ones, which are going to be worth, 5 figures, right? Your risk appetite there needs to change, and you can no longer be doing those kinds of things. And you obviously see mistakes like this happen. And now clearly it's what's happened in this particular instance, because there are a number of examples of why this is fake, not just PSA coming out and saying it's fake or they don't want to authenticate it. And you can say, well, PSA haven't officially said it's fake, but guess what? They removed them all from their population. So that should tell you something. Now, the point I was trying to make is that if Topps were overseeing this happen, they would unequivocally know that this is genuine, and they wouldn't, allow PSA to be sort of doing this to their brand, right? But clearly, they've outsourced it and don't know what's going on. And to give you some quick clarification, Patrick Ryan over here commented on Boston Card Hunter's post, who raised this when he read the Reddit thread. He asked the question, do we know the impact of this? Do we know how many are impacted? Is it just this one from Topps, or is it others? I would say it's more than likely others. Now, obviously, Boston Card Hunter, aka Sports Card Madness, doesn't know himself because this was posted on Reddit. There's no real information that has come to light since then, but he goes on to say he's heard rumors that they've deputized certain players and agents, making them representatives of Topps and Panini to oversee the signature happening. Like I just said, this is a known fact, and like my reply, we've known about it for many, many years. They don't send somebody everywhere. They oversee it or they outsource it, right? And like we've seen in all these particular instances that we've spoken about for multiple years now, it's happened time and time again. It should be common knowledge by now. But to the point of Messi in particular, we spoke about this on the channel a few years ago. We also showed it off in a live stream when the whole, Messi gate came back to life, right? People were talking about this again, I want to say in 2022 during the peak of the hobby. And they were very confused as to why, his Eminence cards, as an example, were selling for far less than what his flawless ones were. And the reason for that is that these have been confirmed to be fake by many autograph experts out there. And the ones you can sort of see on screen, in particular, these 2 rows over here, are the ones that are fake. And you can sort of see here they share very similar traits. If you look at the genuine ones, which is the top row and then the bottom row, you can clearly see that they look very different to these ones over here. And the long-standing rumor with these is that his brother did in fact sign them, his brother being his agent, if I remember correctly. And if you compare this back to the Topps one over here, it looks very, very similar, including how the word Leo itself is spelt. Now, you could say there are similarities up here as well, but, it's one of those situations where clearly these look very different to this one and these ones up here. In particular, the way the curvature of the word Lionel is spelt versus here where you got that weird figure 8 almost. That does not look like it's present in any of his other autographs. And whilst this one does look a little bit better, if PSA is sort of saying it's fake and Topps are not really doing anything about it, we need to sort of take their word for it. And it just goes to my ultimate point of you need to be very careful where you're spending your money. And this is why, autographs on cards, I should say, have always, scared me. I've obviously got a big flawless soccer collection. I'm chasing some Lord of the Rings stuff at the moment. They're all on card. But at the end of the day, we're trusting that the athlete or the actor themselves have signed it, which is obviously a really precarious situation to be in, especially when you're paying what you're paying these days. So this goes back to my point all the time of being very careful. Do your due diligence. Make sure it makes sense when you're going ahead and paying for these things, but factor that in. Factor this risk into your decision-making process. And I had a really unfortunate situation. I want to say maybe 6 months ago. I'll bring it up now on Instagram. It relates to this Ian Home card over here, because I bought this Alien Anthology card while I was out at a card show. I never knew this set existed. You can see here I bought it 35 weeks ago. So super excited to buy it. I'm a huge Alien fan, a huge nerd. I was like, you know what, I'm going to buy it. I want to get Ian Holmes' autograph because he's, fantastic. He was in Alien. He was in Lord of the Rings. I want to try and get something like this, and I like the aesthetics of this card. I'm justifying to you why I bought this card, but ultimately it's because it looked cool. I paid a decent amount of money for it, a little bit more than comps, if I remember correctly, and then posted it on Instagram, and people basically said in the comments, this thing is fake. What are you doing? You should have done some research beforehand, because this Ian Holm autograph looks very, very different to all of his historical autos. Now, I did a bit of research and said, you know what, I agree, because this looks nothing like his autographs from his acting days or from his Lord of the Rings cards. And then I did a bit more research, and he had, there was Parkinson's in his late age, so that was like, okay, maybe that's why he's changed his autograph. CGC actually partnered with JSA at the time, so I sent it in. I made a video about this, and they came back and said both autographs were authentic. So that gives me a bit of comfort. Could JSA have got it wrong? Sure. That gives me a little bit comfort, like I said, but it's a good example that, you know, mistakes are out there, and I've been burned myself. And just one of these things that we need to be very, very careful. But the ultimate point is, why a Topps, why a Panini can get away with this? Like, it's completely unacceptable. It's completely unacceptable that you can be paying the amount of money we're paying for this product. And then number one, they're not even giving the right controls or risk appetite when it comes to overseeing these autographs. But then number two, if they have in fact made a mistake, they're not going to stand by it. They're not going to stand by you and say, well, we made the mistake. We sort of outsourced it. The brother signed it. The friend signed it, whatever it was. But now we're going to give you a refund for the price of the box and the valuation of the card, or what the valuation of the card should be. That's what you'd expect, you know, in a situation like this. But clearly, this person is not getting it. Now, obviously, we're taking their word for it because it's posted on Reddit. We've had a few people like Collect, I think, come out and confirm that the story is true. But it's one of those ones where it's just completely unacceptable. And I want to hear what you guys have to say down below. Because when I think about all the things that I've complained about on this channel in the last few years, and obviously say complained with tongue in cheek, is stuff exactly like this. These companies are charging us, you know, through the teeth to overpay for everything and to try and elevate this hobby to being this premium service. And they'll go ahead and make mistakes like this, where they'll make a mistake and then not stand by it. They'll make, you know, you pay all this money, but they won't put game use stuff in there anymore. They'll make you pay all this money, but they won't put on-card auto stuff as much as they used to. They want to make you pay all this money to get your cards graded, but then they'll go ahead and be incredibly inconsistent, or they won't stand by their grading guarantee, or they'll just go ahead and decertify things. They want to make you pay all this money and bring all this prestige, but not give you the same level of output as a customer. I've said it time and time again. I've said this for 3 or 4 years now. You can go back and quote me. They've like raised the money all the way up here, but then they've kept the risk appetite down here, when historically you were paying this much and the risk appetite was correctly reflecting how much you're paying. What do I mean by risk appetite? I mean, number one, what we're getting back from them as a business, the risk that we get exposed to when we go ahead and pay money for something that ends up being fake, or they've made a mistake, right? It was on par. You were like, okay, it's still shit, but I've only paid $300 and I got a game use on-card auto card that's of a Messi, and now it's worthless, but you've lost $300, whatever it is, right? Whereas now you're paying thousands upon thousands of dollars, and they're giving you the same level. It's still down here. You've got that huge gap now that's not good enough. And when we're talking about, you know, ways they can make this industry better, that's the stuff they should be fixing. They need to fix the customer experience. They need to make it more premium, as I said in the last few days, to try and elevate things. You can't be seen as being the best of the best. You can't be seen as being on this pillar, on this pedestal. You can't be seen as wanting to be mainstream and then going ahead and dishing up crap like this. So ultimately, my point is, factor this stuff in when you're going ahead and spending your money. I've said it time and time again. This kind of stuff is expected these days, and it sucks to sort of say that. And this experience here with this father and son ripping this box on Christmas Day would have been amazing, to sort of hit a card like this and thinking, number one, you're going to have this super amazing card in your collection for life that your son's going to keep forever. Or if you wanted to sell it to make a bit of money or put towards your son's college fund, you could be sitting there and thinking, well, that's amazing. I'm going to, you know, be able to make something off the back that's changed my son's life in some capacity because of this card. Now that whole experience is ruined, purely because a company wanted to charge you an arm and a leg and then go ahead and outsource it to some random person, or outsource it to some family member of the player, as they've done time and time again. It's not good enough. It's completely unacceptable, and we've had countless examples. So my general point is, factor this in when you're going ahead and spending your money. When you see people talking about this issue, make sure they're flagging the right stuff, because, you know, Boston Card Hunter, Sports Card Madness does a good job talking about this sort of thing, but this story would have carried a lot more weight if he knew more about how this autograph overseeing process worked. Because now the conversation is going to be, Topps, why the heck have you done this? Not Topps and Panini, why the heck have you done this for 10, 15, 20 years? You need to have the history behind it for it to carry its weight. This is not good enough. So, you know, share your thoughts down below. I've rambled for a heck of a long time in this video, so I do apologize. Let me know your thoughts. I may have had more points that I wanted to talk to in that intro that I've completely, you know, forgotten about. But if you have any questions, drop them down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys and girls in the next one. Cheers.